Hey, everybody. I'm Molly Fader. Thanks for coming and hanging out. If you're just scrolling by, stop for a second. Nothing's changed in the world and nothing will change in the next hour, although it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like it's changing like every second. 2021 came in with like real hold my beer energy. And I don't know if any of you have been like brave enough to make resolutions. I was not this year, but if you are, then kudos to you. But I will say that for years I've made resolutions, New Year's resolutions, and it's always the same resolution, which is to be more disciplined. And it was like across the board. I wanted to be more disciplined in like eating less sugar and exercising more and writing more words a day and, doing better work on social media. And I went all in on everything. And so it fell apart at like March. So, and I really, really wish that I had been able to read this book as a younger mother and as a younger author, because it's very kind and it's very gentle and it's very much encourages you and inspires you to change your life, but you only really need to change 1 hour to do it. And it's pretty exciting. So I'm going to read you the back cover copy because my mom likes it when I do that. If you do have a New Year's resolution and you want to tell us about it, then post a comment or ask a question. I'm going to be giving away one audiobook copy of this book because I listened to most of this book on audio as I was walking around and enjoyed it immensely. So if you're a New Year's resolutioner, if you're a planner, if you're a person who's just trying to get 1 hour back of their day, leave a comment and I'll send you you could win an audiobook. But anyway, here's the back cover copy. An award-winning journalist, avid reader, and new mom, Karma Brown dreamed of writing her first novel. But between diapers and tight deadlines, how could she? Like so many of us, she felt stretched taut and hyper-scheduled, her time a commodity over which she had lost control. For Brown, the answer to this problem was to rise earlier every day and use that time to write. Although she experienced missteps along the way, after committing to her alarm clock in an online community of early risers, she completed a debut novel that became a national bestseller. In the 4% Fix, Karma Brown reveals the latest research about time management and goal setting, and she shares strategies that have worked for her as well as others. Refreshingly, her jargon-free approach doesn't include time-tracking spreadsheets, tips on how to squeeze in yoga exercises while cooking dinner, or methods that add bulk to those never-ending lists. How will this 1 hour, only 4% of your day, change your life? I mean, it sounds so good, right? Here we go. Here's Karma. Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very good, and I know that this is a little late for you, so I appreciate you having
No problem. Yeah, normally, I mean, I'm truly normally in bed like around 9 because I get up so early. Like this morning it was 4:30. It's normally just before 5, but yeah, I try to limit my night events, but there's so many night events right now. So for book stuff, so I end up sort of just dragging a little bit on those days. Extra coffee.
Forgetting words.
Yeah.
So I know you. I came to your work through your fiction novels. For those of you watching, Recipe for a Perfect Wife, which came out last year, Karma just reminded me that it was sort of at the beginning of the pandemic, and I loved that book. So tell me how this nonfiction project came to your life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been getting up to write my novels for, I think it's 10 years now. I've been getting up really early. And the reason I have a 12-year-old daughter and she never slept. And I don't mean, she just like had a 1 hour nap and then maybe got up once in the night. I mean, she just never slept. She didn't nap and she would get up around 3:30 or 4 every morning for the day. And so I had to get up because you can't leave a toddler on their own. It is frowned upon, and anyone who has had a toddler in their life knows that is a bad idea. So I was up with her doing Play-Doh and crafts and watching her shows. And it occurred to me that maybe that was a time that I could, once she got settled, she's safe, I'm right there, maybe I could try writing. And so I did. And it took me a while to get into a real rhythm where I would set up, I was just telling someone about this the other night because they were saying, I don't know how to keep her busy while I'm trying to write. And I said, well, I would just set up a station or two for her with Play-Doh or a craft or something. And then she would be busy for a time, but there'd be more than one station, a yogurt very low in the fridge. And that way I could get some focus time. So I did this, and that's how I've written all my novels. And now it's a habit versus a necessity. But HarperCollins had approached me and said, we'd love for you to write a 5 a.m. book, like a book about getting up at 5 a.m. to do your writing. And I said, okay. And then I had to write it. And then it was the realization that, there's so much more involved. I joke in the book that it could be really one sentence, which is to set your alarm and then basically put your feet on the floor and get up. That is the secret.
I imagine that being your possibly as something that you've made a habit for 10 years, your initial reaction had to be, well, you just get up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, and I do, I think I talk about that in the book, but I don't really remember that, it's like I learned to ski when I was 2 years old, and I don't really remember not knowing how to ski. And it sort of feels like that a little with this, where I don't really remember that feeling of wanting to just stay in bed. I don't snooze. Right. I don't lie there for a little while thinking it would be really nice to just drift off. I mean, I just wake up and I just get up. And so it doesn't mean that when I sit down after I get up and have my coffee, I don't get distracted by Twitter or by, the news cycle or whatever it is. I mean, some days are harder than others.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't have that need to stay in bed anymore. So, I think for a lot of people, that's the thing that they cannot figure out how to get themselves up early to do this thing. But the reality is it means you have to go to bed earlier. And so people want to stay up late and then get up early to harness that morning time. And you cannot have both.
Well, it's interesting because the argument is made that this 1 hour, you're going to reclaim 1 hour of your time, and in the science sort of indicates that it's really got to be in the morning.
Yeah,
like you're working best in the morning.
Yeah, and I think once you shake off that feeling of like being really tired in the morning, I think a lot of people can appreciate that. Okay, well, if you've had a decent sleep and you're feeling rested, all the stressors and the to-dos and everything that was sitting with you the day before has now either been handled or moved, delegated to this next day. But you've managed all of those responsibilities, those stressors. And so you've slept and your brain has compartmentalized everything it learned and needed to do the day before. It's refreshed. And so when you get up early, before you filled it with emails and, kid stuff and work stuff, you have this time where it's like a clean slate. And people might have time at the end of the day and feel that that's their best time to be creative or to have that hour to do something they've always wanted to do. And some people might be able to make that work. But for a lot of people, you're tired, your brain's tired.
Yeah.
You've been making decisions all day. You've been dealing with kids and work and, book stuff, whatever it is that you're doing. It's relentless. You've been watching the news all day as it is right now. You're just flipping between Twitter and CNN. And so
one of the things that I love about the book, and this was true in two different facets of it. One is the going to bed early and the waking up, and the science makes great arguments for both. And then also get up and do the thing. You're so cool. It's so gentle and be kind to yourself, and you're gonna mess it up. And perfection is crushes progress, all these things. But at the end, you actually just have to do it. And I think we lose. That gets harder and harder, particularly now. And I was wondering, when you're sitting down at 5:30 at 5 a.m. And it's not going well, do you ever walk away, or is it this is when I write, and now I'm writing and I won't stop?
Yeah, I won't say that I never walk away, because that does happen, or I'll switch gears. I'll do something else that I need to handle. I try to reserve that time for my creative writing and to save all the other parts of my job for later in the day. So I really try to set up my writing the night before so that I'm never coming into a scene or a chapter cold. I usually try to leave it on a moment of tension or halfway through a scene, and I might jot down a couple of notes so that I don't forget what I wanted to do. But I try not to close out. You know, that
Yeah.
great feeling when you come to the end of a scene and you're like, oh, good, okay, like now, on to the next one. But then it's hard
And
to
the
get
next day,
going again. Yeah, you don't have your momentum. So I have some tricks around how I do that to help myself, just sit down and be able to write. But yeah, it doesn't always work. And sometimes, I mean, the other day, I think I wrote like a total of 4 words because I think I wrote 200 and then I deleted 196. And then I had 4 words and that was all I had. And so it's not,
just
it doesn't,
relentlessly watching that
yeah,
word.
yes. Yeah, well, when you're on a deadline, you are relentlessly watching that word count. And, I do talk in the book about it. This isn't time to do your job, to do, like to get see, I'm losing my words already because it's 8:10 and I've been up forever, but it isn't the time to get ahead
Yeah,
in
you're
your
not going to do.
day.
You don't need to
Um,
do laundry. You don't need to
no, I mean,
start dinner.
you can if you want, but people then will call me on it and say, well, your job is as a writer, and so you're actually technically getting up early to do your job. And I don't know if writers, if you have to be a writer to really understand the difference between like when you're in that really creative zone and you're not, it is just something outside of feeling like you're doing a job. And so that's why I say I save that time for my really creative moments where I'm not doing the busy work that's involved with being an author, which I view more as my job.
Right.
The writing is this just creative, fun, real flow experience. So that's and I was trying to learn the ukulele. I did that for a few mornings, but I'm not good at instruments. And so yeah, that's not, I tried knitting. I mean, I've tried a few different things. And that's part of the fun, but
I find that writing to be, if it's something that you've taken from a hobby into a career,
yeah.
it is really all consuming. Like
Mhm.
and particularly when you talk about like being in the flow and you talk about it in the book, and my family just watched Soul. I don't know if you've seen Soul.
Oh, no, no.
The new Pixar movie anyway, but they talk about it too. And they sort of
Mm.
this beautiful animation of what this jazz piano player, what the flow looks like to him. And
Mm.
yeah, I mean, if I could write 12 hours a day in that space, but you
Yeah.
don't get 12 hours a day
You
because,
don't.
yeah.
You don't, and you can't. I mean, you really can't stay in it for that long either. But if you can get in it, it's just an amazing thing. So, for writers who know what that feels like, or any creatives or people who are musicians, or, I think there's a lot of different ways you can get into a flow. I've done that before when I've been baking, where I am just so into, I love to bake. It's my procrastination strategy when I'm having trouble writing. And, I even find that sometimes when I'm just so focused on the task and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, that all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, wait a second, what's happening? Where am I? So, carefully trying to frost something. So, there's a lot of different ways that shows up for people depending on what it is that you're doing. But it is a sort of a magical thing about being a writer, I think in particular, is getting into that zone.
You do talk about it in the book, and I was wondering if you had, I mean, particularly as you have a limited amount of time, do you have some tips or some ways that you trick yourself or whatever? It's late too.
Yeah.
To get yourself into the flow, like or does it come when it comes and you can't force it, or are you able now to sort of make it happen?
The easiest way for me to make it happen is to make sure I know where I need to go the next day. I am a planner and a plotter. I'm not one of those plotters who has spreadsheets and note cards and, a whole wall filled with a tree of what's going to happen. But I generally have done quite a bit of thinking about what needs to happen with my character and who they are. And So when I sit down in the morning, I've prepared the night before to make sure I know what I need to do for that specific scene or that specific character. But I have, that's one way I trick myself to make sure I'm really in the story. I try not to sit down with no clue and wait for, something to show up. I'm sure there are people who can make that work, but I feel that I would sit there for 2 hours, which is the time. I generally have 2 hours in the morning at 5. That's the time I take. I am pretty sure nothing would happen. And, I'd have 4 words and then that would be it. So that's sort of my personal trick, is to not sit down cold. But there are other people for whom that would be stifling, likely. There's an activity that people do, like the morning pages when people journal. Writers will often spend that time in the morning not working on their project, but doing their morning pages, which is essentially just a free flow writing exercise where you just write whatever has come to mind, and you don't edit and you don't stop yourself. You just let it all flow out. And I think if people do struggle to get into a rhythm, they can't quite get themselves going, that's one way to do it, because there's no rules, there's no expectation for what ends up on the page. It just helps you get into the rhythm. I'm a little too type A for morning pages. I tried it and it annoyed me that I had these pages filled up with something that I wasn't going to use. So that didn't, so I think you just also have to know yourself. But
I'd look down and I'd be like, that's 500 words. That's 500 words about what I'm going to make for dinner and what's going on with my kids and about the book I should be writing.
And I get the value of it. I really do. And there are probably days where I should do that. It's almost a meditation, just a creative meditation, but I'm very impatient and I'm a work in progress around that. So, but yeah, that's another trick for people who are trying to get into a creative headspace, and may not have something ready to go, but they want to be in the habit, get the muscle of thinking that way. Yeah. In the morning.
One of the other parts of the book that I really, really enjoyed, because I'm a 45-year-old woman, I'm obsessed with the sleep that I'm not getting.
Yeah.
And you talk a lot about sleep, and there's this reality that you mentioned, that before, we were industrialized, the way that we slept was very different, and that there was like a break in the night.
Yeah.
Talk about this?
Yeah, it's this biphasic sleep where people would, and this was before electricity, and so there are reasons why it was done this way. So people would go to bed with the sun when the sun went down and get up when the sun comes up. So they were going to bed a bit earlier than we might be going to bed now. And then they would sleep for like 4 or 5 hours. Then people would get up and have a time of wakefulness in the middle of the night for a couple of hours. They would read, they would play music, they would visit. They probably did other, time to have sex. Like they did all those sorts of things, and then they would sleep again for another block of time, and then get up in the morning when the sun came up. And this was how we slept. This was the normal pattern of sleeping. And actually, my husband the other night said to me, because he gets up in the middle of the night and is up for about an hour, and he read that part of the book, and he was like, "This is me. This is what I'm doing." But
total sense.
Yeah, and so now he just gets up, and he just, instead of lying there and feeling like he can't, he's losing out on the sleep, he sort of just gets up and goes and reads for a bit, or does something else, and then just falls back asleep. So, sleep is so complex, and those were some of the hardest chapters for me to write. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert. There's a lot that people don't know. I mean, the thing that we do know about sleep is that we need it. We're not getting enough of it. And our devices are really getting in the way of our sleep. So getting up early to do this is not about becoming sleep deprived. And if there's no way for you to do it without being sleep deprived, then you can't do it. This is not the right time of your life to do this. And that's fine, right? And not everyone has the privilege to be able to choose to get up in the morning and do something with their time. And I understand that. But people need to go to bed earlier if they want to get up earlier. It's really that simple.
You also mentioned in the book, my husband's name is Adam as well. And
Oh,
my Adam he takes an afternoon nap. This is a
Mhm,
guy that
mhm.
he could fall asleep on a ball.
Yeah.
You know what? He could
My
fall asleep.
Adam is the same. He can
And,
sleep,
and,
nap anywhere.
and he has a full night's sleep, takes a bit of a snooze. And I like my complicated feelings I have about his nap that haunt me when I'm like tossing and turning at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's like,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Like he's
Yeah.
just completely out. I'm like, man, I think maybe the science supports an
Yeah.
afternoon nap. It really does.
It does. And so he also felt quite justified about his afternoon nap when he read that part. I cannot nap. I do not like to nap. It stresses me out. I don't understand sleeping midday whatsoever. But a lot of people think, like, I mean, I do get up at 4 in the morning. It's practically the middle of the night, but I go to bed at 9. So I don't feel that I need a nap. I'm actually getting enough sleep every night. It's just the schedule that works for me. But also for women, as you age, it becomes much harder to sleep. I mean,
Yeah.
you have
So
children, you don't sleep well. I think once you have kids, you never really sleep properly again. So, it's just lots of things happen in the middle of the night to interrupt your sleep. But that's also partly why, for me, when she was smaller, especially getting up early, I would know that I had this block of time that was just mine. And then no matter what went wrong for the rest of the day, through the night, I had already done this thing for myself. And at a time where I felt like I didn't have much time for myself, that was life-saving for me.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
One of the other parts of the book that I found so interesting, and I am a person who every New Year's resolution was like a full life overhaul, and I'm a
Yes,
person
of
who
course.
like I don't like spreadsheets, but I like calendars, I like lists, I like all those things. And your like productivity tools
Mhm.
they talk about in the book are so like they're lo-fi, but they're so
Lo-fi.
effective. They're so effective. So and the two that really stuck with me is your four, and I'm sorry, I'm going to mess up the names, but you had four big goals. What were
Yeah.
tell us what that
I
was?
call it my focused four.
Yeah,
It changes frequently what the categories are, but these are the categories that you put a goal in, and it's usually a smallish goal, every day. The four most important categories for your day that really lead to your values and your priorities. So for me, it's health, is one, productivity is one, family is one, and right now I'm doing wellness is my fourth one, and I would put mental health in there, whereas the other health box is for my physical health. I try to exercise, and I generally look at about an hour for that activity. So these are like four activities per day. Might take 5 minutes. It might take an hour if I'm working out. A family one might be that we all eat dinner together, or I get my daughter to cook with me or bake something with me. And it's not meant to be, again, it's never about perfection, but what it does for me every day is allows me to think about what my priorities are for that
yeah,
day. And then I think about that the next day. And sometimes they're the same priorities and sometimes they have shifted. But that's how I kind of keep top of mind what I need to do, want to do, what's important to me. It's not just a work to-do list or a
right.
house to-do
It,
list. It goes
it,
deeper
it
than that.
it feels like the things that we forget about when we're bogged down with our to-do list, right? Like
Yeah,
I have this to-do list, and so I forget to work out. I forget to,
yeah,
spend that time, play the game after dinner with my kids.
right.
Those things all get sacrificed to this busyness, and
Yeah,
I lose sight of these focused four. And I just, particularly, I mean, doing all of this, thinking about all of this also right now in this strange
I know.
pandemic that we're in, where time is like slippery.
Yeah,
It's really wild. But I've never had this much time with my family, and at the same time, it
yeah,
also feels a little bit like we're wasting it every day. Like it's
I
so.
know. Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think that's part of it, that you're with them so much. And normally, like in the before times, when you would have family time, you would be so focused on, okay, how are we connecting? Are we having dinner? Are we playing our games? But now we're together all the time, every day. And so you cannot make it high quality time all the time. It can't be high quality time. And there's so much guilt with that. And I struggle with that too, where I'm like, should we not be playing like a board game right now? And my daughter doesn't want to play a board game.
Oh, you froze, Karma. Come back.
I'm back. Am I back? Yeah.
There you are.
I'm back. It's probably just, she's probably streaming something right now. It's because she's talking with her friends. You know, she's at that age where she wants to be with her friends. And the only way to do that is virtually. So me insisting on us playing a game of Clue, because I feel like that's what we're supposed to be doing to check the family time box, it doesn't work. So,
Yeah.
you know, in these pandemic times, it is odd. It's almost hard to find ways to connect in a meaningful way because you're together all the time.
So connected. Yeah, it is remarkable. The other part of that, so you have the focus for, but the other part of it is how you do set up your to-do list with your three columns. Tell us about that.
Well, and again, this changes all the time. Like I don't have a piece of paper where I write everything down and I'm always like, okay, this is exactly how I'm going to do it every day. But when I look at my to-do list and the things that I have to do, I really look at, okay, what do I have to do myself? Is there anything that I can give to someone else or get someone else to do? And what can be put off for later? So I don't, you know, because that list just becomes this rolling list, especially if you keep it digitally. It never ends. And so if you're not able to, you know, almost compartmentalize how you need to look at your to-dos, what's probably happening is that high priority things are getting lost in the mix. You might be procrastinating on the things that you really do need to do. So it's like, what can I put a pin in it for later? Stick those off to the side. Get rid of what you can right off the bat and make sure you're managing your priorities first. You know, I had listened to this great podcast and they were talking about email, and that really got me thinking about my to-dos and how I think about what I need to get done. And they were saying, like, before we would get mail, you know, back then when we would get actual physical mail, and you would very easily be able to see what was a priority and what wasn't. There would be a credit card application that, you know, just by looking at it, it's addressed like to owner of. You can toss that away. And then you've got a letter that's from maybe your mom, and you know you need to read that and you want to read that. In email, everything lands in your inbox with all the same level of priority. And so it gets overwhelming to see, where do I need to put my energy and my time? And I think we've become accustomed to that type of
just start at the top and work your way down, and it doesn't matter.
A rolling list and just keep trying to get through it and add to it. And you do lose the ability to then stay focused on what your priorities are. You know, there's maybe stuff you just don't have to do, so you can let it go, or delegate it if you can. There's certain things I like. So my husband, I don't like folding laundry. I don't know why. I just hate it and putting it away. And so he read that in the book and he was like, well, I don't mind folding laundry, so why don't I fold your laundry? I mean, this was a very significant marital moment where I was like, he did not have to ask twice. I was like, you now are my laundry folder. This is going to happen.
You said something earlier. I mean, you just don't think about it. That's great.
Yeah. So I delegated that off my to-do list. Yeah. We'll see for how long. It's only been a week since he said he'd fold my laundry. So we'll have to like circle back on this one and see if it lasted. But
well, I found the book. So particularly for right now, when seismic change feels so challenging, and we're a breath away from being overwhelmed by just about everything. Right, the world outside is really difficult, and this felt. It felt like we're friends, you know, like it's this beautiful writing style that was just like personable and relatable, and it was kind, and it urges kindness, but at the same time, it's just, hey, you just do this one thing. And I just really appreciated it. So I thanks for writing it. I wanted to ask real quick about like, can you tell us anything about the next fiction novel?
Yeah.
Like, when's it coming? What's it about?
Well, I don't know when it's coming. Maybe 2022, like by the end of the year, maybe, because I've just finished. So, as you know, there's a whole process around editing and marketing, and but it is another dual narrative similar to Recipe for a Perfect Wife. It's set in 1975 and 2019. There's a little more of a mystery element through it. It's based in the Adirondack Mountains. And it follows two women, and they are connected in ways that I won't talk about now, but you sort of that story plays out over the pages the same way that Recipe did, with the two women in the two different eras who had that cookbook that was the shared talisman sort of between them, that old cookbook in the house. So yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was nice to get back to writing fiction again. I couldn't write this 4% fix book. I did not write at 5 a.m. because it refused to be written at 5 a.m. So it was such a strange experience. I'd never had that happen before. So then I would work on fiction at 5 a.m. and then I would work on this one during the day. But I think it's because it was more fact-based and I was doing a lot of research. And so the writing was just different. It was my own story instead of trying to create, a world and a story. So yeah.
Well, I'm excited about your next book. I really loved the 4.5 Weeks. And I do have to say that A Recipe for a Perfect Wife, I'm a big cookbook lover.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I don't write. So for those of you who might not have read this book, and I really urge you to go out and buy this book, a woman and her new husband have left the city and they've moved into the suburbs. And in this house, she finds a cookbook that was well loved and, lots of, notes in the margins from the owner. And I have started writing in the margins of my cookbook.
Oh, you have? Good. That's my mom did that. I mean, that's like all my old vintage cookbooks have notes, even ones from my grandmother, because that's just something that my family did. And I think a lot of women did, particularly back then. So I do it now. It's just, and I hope my daughter will do it and just keep passing the legacy of that. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm
defacing cookbooks.
Perfect.
Thank you, Karma. We're going to let you get to bed. Thanks
Molly,
for coming out. If you are listening to this on the podcast, thank you. More and more of you are showing up every week, and I can't believe it. If you want to subscribe, that would be great. It's on Day Drinking with Authors. It's on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and then all the other ones where you can find podcasts. And tell a friend, because it's a lot of fun. There's about 20 interviews up there now across a wide range of. Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's been a nice way to kind of feel like I'm moving forward in the pandemic. Right? Like it's kept me interested. It's kept me. I'm reading a book a week, which I was a big reader, but now like a book a week that's a lot. It's really fun.
That's great. That's great. Very much
enjoyed it. So thank you to everybody. Stay home if you can. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Read a book.
Yes.
Night, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Molly.